The letter trembled in Naomi Douglas's hands as she stepped off the dusty stagecoach into the Nevada afternoon, knowing that if anyone in Pioche discovered her brother had just robbed a bank in Carson City 3 days ago, her fresh start would crumble before it even began. The year was 1877, and the mining town of Pioche stretched before her like a promise she desperately wanted to believe in. Wooden buildings lined the main street, their false fronts reaching toward a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Somewhere in this town was Owen Sullivan, the rancher who had answered her advertisement for correspondence and eventually proposed marriage through carefully written letters that spoke of loneliness and hope in equal measure. She had not mentioned her brother in any of those letters. She had tried to pretend, for just a few blessed months, that Thomas Douglas did not exist. A man stood near the general store, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his worn hat. He was watching the stagecoach with an expression that mixed anticipation and uncertainty, and Naomi's heart performed an uncomfortable flip in her chest. He looked nothing like she had imagined, which was to say he looked better. His face was weathered by sun and wind, strong-featured and honest, with eyes that even from this distance seemed kind. "Miss Douglas," he called, removing his hat as he approached. His voice was deep and steady, the kind of voice that made you want to trust him. "Mr. Sullivan," she replied, clutching her single carpet bag tighter. Everything she owned in the world was in this bag, along with the weight of secrets she could barely carry. Owen Sullivan smiled, and it transformed his serious face into something warm. "Please call me Owen." "I hope the journey wasn't too difficult." "It was long," she admitted, "but I am grateful to be here." He reached for her bag and she let him take it, their fingers brushing for just a moment. Even through her gloves she felt the calluses on his hands, the evidence of hard work and honest labor. Everything her brother was not. "I have a wagon just there," Owen said, gesturing down the street. "The ranch is about 5 miles outside of town. It's not much, but it's home. I hope you'll think so too." As they walked toward the wagon, Naomi tried to focus on the present moment rather than the newspaper she had glimpsed at the last stage stop, the one with the headline about the Carson City robbery. 3 men had held up the Silver State Bank, making off with nearly $8,000. One teller had been pistol-whipped. The article had not named the suspects, but Naomi knew with the sick certainty that lived in her gut that Thomas had been one of them. He had written to her 6 months ago, asking for money, telling her he was in trouble with the wrong people. She had sent him everything she had saved and told him to use it to start over. She should have known better. "You are quiet," Owen observed as he helped her into the wagon seat. His hands on her waist were gentle but firm, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Just taking it all in," she said. "It is very different from Boston." "I imagine so." He climbed up beside her and took the reins. "I have never been east of the Mississippi myself. Grew up in Missouri, came west after the war." "You fought?" she asked, grateful for a topic that had nothing to do with criminals or secrets. "I did. Confederate side, though I am not proud of it. My father insisted and I was too young to know my own mind." He glanced at her, his expression serious. "I do not hold with slavery, never did. That is important for you to know." The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. Here was a good man, a decent man, and she was coming to him carrying lies like stones in her pockets. "I am glad," she said softly. "That speaks well of your character." The ranch, when they reached it, was more than she had expected. The house was solid timber construction, clearly well maintained, with a wide porch and glass windows that caught the afternoon sun. A barn stood nearby, along with several corrals where horses grazed. Mountains rose in the distance, purple and imposing against the endless sky. "It is beautiful," Naomi said and meant it. Owen's smile returned, bashful this time. "I have worked hard on it, built most of it myself with help from my foreman, Jack. He lives in the bunkhouse with 2 other hands. They are good men, respectful. You will have nothing to fear from them." Inside, the house was sparse but clean. The main room held a stone fireplace, a sturdy table with chairs, and a rocking chair positioned to catch the light from the window. A kitchen area occupied one corner, and 2 doors led to what she assumed were bedrooms. "I thought you might want your own room," Owen said, reading her thoughts. "Until we are properly married, I mean. The Reverend will come out from town next Sunday if that suits you, or we could wait longer if you need time." The consideration in his offer made Naomi's throat tight. "Next Sunday would be fine," she managed. "Thank you for your thoughtfulness." "I will put your bag in the guest room," he said. "It is smaller than the main bedroom, but it has a good bed and a window that catches the morning sun. I hope you will be comfortable." After he left her alone to settle in, Naomi sat on the narrow bed and finally let herself cry. Silent tears slid down her cheeks as she thought about Thomas, about the path he had chosen, about how desperately she had tried to save him over the years. Their parents had died when she was 16 and Thomas was 14, both taken by fever within a week of each other. She had raised him as best she could, working as a seamstress, then as a teacher, always trying to keep him fed and clothed and on the right path. But Thomas had fallen in with bad companions, had started stealing small things, then larger things. By the time he was 20, he had served time in jail twice. Now he was 22 and apparently graduated to bank robbery. She had left Boston hoping to escape the shadow of his reputation, hoping to build a life that was her own. But shadows had a way of following. That evening, Owen made dinner with an ease that surprised her. "I have been cooking for myself for 5 years," he explained as he set plates of beef stew and fresh bread on the table. "A man learns if he wants to eat well." "It smells wonderful," Naomi said, and it did. Her stomach reminded her that she had barely eaten during the journey. They ate in companionable near silence, stealing glances at each other between bites. Finally, Owen set down his spoon and looked at her directly. "I know this is strange," he said. "Marrying someone you have only just met in person. I want you to know that I will do my best to be a good husband to you, Naomi. I will provide for you, protect you, and treat you with respect. I hope that in time we might find more than that, but I will not pressure you." His sincerity made her want to confess everything right then, but fear held her tongue. "You are very kind," she said instead. "I will try to be a good wife to you." The days before the wedding passed in a blur of activity. Naomi threw herself into learning the routines of the ranch, insisting on taking over the cooking and cleaning despite Owen's protests that she did not need to prove herself. The work kept her hands busy and her mind occupied, which was a mercy. She met Jack, the foreman, a grizzled man in his 50s who looked at her with approval and told Owen he was lucky. The other 2 hands, young men named Pete and Charlie, were polite and friendly, tipping their hats and keeping their distance. Owen was unfailingly kind, showing her around the property, explaining his plans for expanding the horse herd, asking her opinions as though they mattered. At night, they sat by the fireplace and talked about everything and nothing. He told her about his childhood in Missouri, about the sister who had died of scarlet fever when he was 10, about his dreams of building something lasting. She told him about Boston, about teaching children their letters, about the ocean she already missed. She did not tell him about Thomas. Sunday came too quickly and too slowly. The Reverend arrived in the morning, a round man with kind eyes who asked few questions. Owen had invited Jack to stand as witness, and one of the neighboring ranchers' wives, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, came to stand with Naomi. The ceremony was brief and simple. Naomi wore her best dress, a blue cotton that brought out her eyes, and Owen wore a clean white shirt with a string tie. When he took her hands in his, she felt the trembling in them and realized he was as nervous as she was. "Do you, Owen Matthew Sullivan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the Reverend asked. "I do," Owen said, his voice steady and sure. "And do you, Naomi Elizabeth Douglas, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" The moment hung in the air. This was her last chance to tell him the truth, to confess about Thomas before binding herself to this good man under false pretenses. But the words would not come, trapped behind her fear of losing this chance at happiness. "I do," she whispered. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Owen leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But Naomi did not pull away. She let him kiss her, a gentle press of lips that promised tenderness. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion. "Hello, Mrs. Sullivan," he said softly. "Hello, Mr. Sullivan," she replied, and for just a moment she let herself believe that everything would be all right. Mrs. Patterson had brought a cake, and they shared it with the Reverend and the ranch hands in a celebration that was modest but genuine. Owen did not drink alcohol, which surprised Naomi until he explained that his father had been a violent drunk, and he had promised himself never to follow that path. Another mark of his character, another weight on her guilty conscience. That night, Owen knocked softly on her door. "May I come in?" "Yes," she said, her heart hammering. He entered, still fully dressed, his expression uncertain. "I wanted to say that we do not have to. That is, I know we barely know each other. I do not expect anything just because we are married now. We can take our time." The relief she felt was tinged with something else, something that might have been disappointment. Owen Sullivan was handsome and kind, and the way he looked at her made her feel things she had not expected to feel. "Thank you," she said. "But perhaps we could talk for a while. I find I am not tired yet." His smile was like sunrise. He sat in the chair by the window, and she curled up on the bed, and they talked long into the night about everything and nothing. He made her laugh with stories about learning to break horses, about the time a chicken had chased him across the yard when he was 6. She told him about her students in Boston, about the little girl who had called her mama by accident and cried about it. "You miss teaching," Owen observed. "I do," she admitted. "Children are honest in a way adults often are not. They say what they mean." "Perhaps you could teach here," he suggested. "Pioche has a school, but I hear they are always looking for qualified teachers. Or if you did not want to go into town every day, some of the ranch families around here might appreciate someone to teach their children." The idea took root in her mind, a possibility she had not considered. "I would like that," she said. When Owen finally stood to leave, he paused by the bed. "I am glad you are here, Naomi. I know we are still getting to know each other, but I want you to know that I am committed to making this work, to making you happy." After he left, Naomi lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. She had to tell him about Thomas. She knew that, but not tonight. Tonight had been perfect, and she wanted to hold on to that perfection for just a little longer. The news arrived 3 weeks later, carried by a man she had never wanted to see again. She was hanging laundry in the yard when the rider appeared, coming fast from the direction of town. Owen was out checking the fence line in the north pasture, and the hands were all busy with their work. The rider pulled up in a cloud of dust, and Naomi's blood turned to ice when she recognized the face beneath the hat brim. Thomas Douglas looked older than his 22 years, his face gaunt and shadowed with stubble. His clothes were dusty and worn, and the horse beneath him was lathered with sweat. "Naomi," he said, dismounting quickly. "Thank God I found you. What are you doing here?" She hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. "You should not be here." "I am in trouble," he said, which was so obvious it would have been funny if it were not so terrible. "The law is after me. There is a price on my head. I need money, nay. Enough to get to California, maybe down into Mexico." "I do not have any money," she said, her voice shaking. "And even if I did, I would not give it to you, not for this." His face hardened. "I am your brother." "You are a bank robber," she shot back, her voice rising despite her attempts to keep it down. "You pistol-whipped an innocent man. Do you understand that? You hurt someone who was just doing his job." "He was reaching for something," Thomas said defensively. "It might have been a gun." "It was not, though, was it?" Naomi felt years of frustration and fear boiling over. "You need to turn yourself in, Thomas. Face what you have done." "So I can hang." He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in painfully. "They hang bank robbers, Naomi. I will not go to prison again. I cannot." "Let go of me," she said, trying to pull away. "Not until you help me. You owe me. I am your family." "What is going on here?" Owen's voice cut through the air like a whip. He was standing near the barn, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. Jack was beside him, and both men looked dangerous in a way Naomi had not seen before. Thomas released her arm and stepped back. "This does not concern you, friend. This is between me and my sister." "Your sister is my wife," Owen said, his voice cold and level. "That makes it very much my concern." "Who are you?" Naomi saw the calculation in Thomas's eyes, saw him weighing his options. "I am her brother, Thomas Douglas. I just came to pay a visit, but it seems I am not welcome." "Thomas Douglas," Jack said slowly. "There is a wanted poster for a Thomas Douglas over at the sheriff's office in Pioche. Bank robbery in Carson City. Says he is dangerous, possibly armed." Thomas's hand moved toward his gun, but Owen was faster. His pistol was out and aimed before Thomas could clear leather. "Do not," Owen said softly. "I am a good shot and I will not miss at this distance." For a long moment nobody moved. Then Thomas raised his hand slowly, his face twisted with anger and betrayal. "You told them about me," he spat at Naomi. "I did not," she said, her voice breaking. "I never said a word. But that does not change what you did, Thomas." Jack moved forward and removed Thomas's gun from its holster, then searched him for other weapons. He found a knife in Thomas's boot and another small pistol tucked into his belt. "I will ride into town and fetch the sheriff," Jack said. "No," Naomi said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Please, just let him go. Let him ride away and we will never speak of this again." Owen's expression was unreadable. "Naomi, he is wanted by the law. I know that." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I know, but he is my brother. He is the only family I have left. Please, Owen, please." Thomas looked at her with something like hope, but Owen's eyes never left her brother's face. "Your sister has a kind heart," Owen said to Thomas. "Kinder than you deserve. But I am not going to let you go." "You know why?" Thomas said nothing. "Because if I let you go, you will do it again," Owen continued. "You will rob another bank, hurt another person, maybe kill someone next time. And your sister will carry that guilt for the rest of her life, wondering if she could have stopped it. I will not do that to her." "You do not know anything about me," Thomas said. "I know enough." Owen's voice was hard. "Jack, go get the sheriff." As Jack rode away, Owen gestured with his pistol toward the porch. "Sit down. We will wait there." The next hour was one of the longest of Naomi's life. She sat on the porch steps, her face in her hands, while Owen stood guard over Thomas. Neither man spoke. She could feel Owen's gaze on her occasionally, but she could not bring herself to look at him. He knew now. He knew what she had been hiding, that she was the sister of a criminal, that she had come to him under false pretenses. When the sheriff arrived with Jack, he was a lean man with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He looked at Thomas, then at the wanted poster Jack had brought from town. "That is him," the sheriff said. "Thomas Douglas, you are under arrest for bank robbery and assault." Thomas did not resist as the sheriff bound his hands, but as they led him to his horse, he turned to look at Naomi one last time. "I am sorry," he said, and for just a moment she saw the boy he had been, the little brother she had tried so hard to save. Then his face hardened again. "But you should have helped me. Family is supposed to help family." "I did help you," Naomi said quietly. "For years I helped you. I gave you everything I had, but I cannot save you from yourself, Thomas. Nobody can do that but you." After they were gone, the silence in the yard was deafening. Owen holstered his pistol and turned to look at her. His face was carefully neutral, and that was somehow worse than anger would have been. "I should have told you," Naomi said, the words tumbling out. "I should have told you about him before we married. I am sorry. I was afraid you would not want me if you knew." Owen was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down on the steps beside her, his shoulder not quite touching hers. "Tell me now," he said. "Tell me everything." So she did. She told him about her parents dying, about raising Thomas, about all the times she had bailed him out of trouble. She told him about the letters asking for money, about her desperate hope that leaving Boston would give her a fresh start. She told him about seeing the newspaper article about the robbery and just knowing that Thomas had been involved. "I did not know he would come here," she said. "I swear I did not know." "I believe you." Owen's voice was quiet. "But you should have told me, Naomi. Before we married, you should have told me. I know." Fresh tears slid down her cheeks. "I was afraid. I have spent so much of my life being known as Thomas Douglas's sister, the girl whose brother is a thief. I wanted to be just Naomi for once, just myself." Owen was silent, staring out at the mountains in the distance. Naomi felt her heart breaking slowly, inevitably. He was going to ask her to leave. He was going to end the marriage. She had known it was too good to be true, known that she did not deserve this kind of happiness. "My father was a drunk and a bully," Owen said finally. "He beat my mother regularly, beat me too when he was in the mood for it. When I was 17, I left home and never looked back. I do not even know if he is still alive, and I do not care to find out." Naomi looked at him in surprise. "After the war, I drifted for a while," he continued. "Did some things I am not proud of. Nothing criminal, but I was not a good man. I was angry at the world, angry at God, angry at myself. Then I came here and decided to build something, to be someone different than who I had been." He turned to look at her, and his eyes were sad but not unkind. "We all have things in our past, Naomi. People we would rather forget, choices we wish we could take back. But here is what I have learned. You are not your brother. His choices do not define you. They never did, and they never will." "But I lied to you," she whispered. "By omission I lied." "You did," he agreed. "And I am hurt by that, but I understand why you did it. You were afraid, and fear makes us do foolish things." He reached out and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. "I meant what I said in our wedding vows, Naomi, for better or worse. I am not going to leave you because your brother is a criminal. That would be like leaving me because my father was a drunk. We cannot control our family members. We can only control ourselves. You truly mean that?" She asked, hardly daring to believe. "I do." He squeezed her hand gently. "But I need you to promise me something. No more secrets. If something is troubling you, if you are afraid of something, you come to me. We face it together. That is what marriage is supposed to be." "I promise," she said fervently. "I promise, Owen. No more secrets." He pulled her into his arms then, and she buried her face against his chest and cried. He held her while she sobbed, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring soft reassurances. When she finally pulled back, his shirt was wet with her tears, but he did not seem to mind. "I do not deserve you," she said. "That is not for you to decide," he replied with a slight smile. "I think we deserve each other just fine." That night, for the first time since their marriage, Naomi went to Owen's room instead of her own. She knocked softly on his door, and when he opened it, she saw surprise and something else flicker across his face. "I do not want to sleep alone tonight," she said simply. He stepped back to let her in. The room was larger than hers, with a big bed covered in a quilt that looked handmade. A lamp burned on the bedside table, casting warm shadows. "I am glad you are here," Owen said. "I did not want to be alone either." They lay down together, still fully clothed, and Owen pulled the quilt over them both. Naomi rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. His arm came around her, holding her close but not tight, protective but not possessive. "Thank you," she whispered. "For understanding, for being kind. You do not need to thank me for that," he said. "It is just who I want to be, who I choose to be." They fell asleep like that, wrapped together, and Naomi slept better than she had in weeks. The next few weeks brought changes. Naomi found herself settling into life on the ranch with increasing comfort. She took over the cooking entirely, discovering that she enjoyed creating meals for Owen and the hands. She started a garden near the house, planting vegetables and herbs. Owen watched her work with approval, helping her build a fence to keep the rabbits out. Their relationship deepened in small, quiet ways. Owen began kissing her goodbye in the mornings before he went out to work. She started mending his clothes without being asked. They talked more, sharing stories and dreams and fears. At night, she went to his room and he to hers, taking turns so neither bed felt neglected. They held each other and talked until they fell asleep, but they had not yet consummated their marriage. Owen seemed content to wait, and Naomi was grateful for his patience even as she felt something growing between them, a tension that was not unpleasant but was definitely present. One evening, about a month after Thomas's arrest, a letter arrived from Carson City. Owen brought it in from town and handed it to Naomi with a somber expression. "It is from the courthouse," he said. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter informed her that Thomas had been tried and convicted of bank robbery and assault. He had been sentenced to 15 years in the territorial prison. He would be eligible for parole in 10 years if he showed good behavior. Naomi read it twice, then set it down on the table. She did not know how to feel. Relieved that he had not been hanged. Sad that he would spend the best years of his life in prison. Angry that he had thrown everything away. Guilty that she felt relieved. 15 years, she said. He will be 37 when he gets out, his whole life wasted. Owen sat down beside her. "It was his choice, Naomi, not yours." "I know," she rubbed her eyes wearily. "I just keep thinking about what you said, that I am not defined by his choices. I want to believe that, but part of me still feels responsible. I raised him. Maybe if I had done things differently—" "Stop," Owen said firmly. "You did everything you could. You fed him, clothed him, loved him. You gave him every chance. He made his own decisions. You cannot carry that guilt." "How do you let go of it?" she asked. "The guilt, the responsibility. How did you stop feeling responsible for your father's actions?" "I decided that I was only responsible for myself," he said. "For who I choose to be, how I choose to act. Everything else is outside my control, and worrying about things I cannot control is just a waste of time and energy." She leaned against him, drawing strength from his solidity. "Will you help me?" she asked. "Help me learn to let go, every day," he promised. "Every single day." A week later, Naomi was in town buying supplies when she overheard two women talking outside the general store. She had not meant to eavesdrop, but her own name stopped her in her tracks. "I heard her brother is in prison," one woman said in a stage whisper. "Bank robber. Can you imagine? Poor Owen Sullivan, stuck with a woman whose family is criminal." "They say the apple does not fall far from the tree," the other woman replied. "I would not be surprised if she was involved somehow. Why else would she have come all the way out here?" Naomi stood frozen, the words hitting her like physical blows. She wanted to confront them, to defend herself, but what could she say? Thomas was a criminal. That was simply fact. "Excuse me, ladies." Mrs. Patterson, the woman who had stood with Naomi at her wedding, appeared beside the gossiping women. Her expression was stern. "I could not help but overhear your conversation," Mrs. Patterson said, "and I feel compelled to correct your assumptions. Naomi Sullivan is one of the kindest, most hard-working women I have had the pleasure to meet. She had nothing to do with her brother's crimes, and it is shameful of you to suggest otherwise." "We were just," one of the women began. "Gossiping," Mrs. Patterson interrupted. "Engaging in the worst kind of small-minded speculation. Naomi is not her brother any more than you are your cousins or I am my aunt. We are all individuals, responsible for our own actions. Now, if you will excuse me, I have shopping to do." She swept past them and saw Naomi standing there. Her expression softened. "I am sorry you had to hear that," she said quietly. "Thank you," Naomi said, her throat tight, "for defending me. It was nothing but the truth." Mrs. Patterson patted her arm. "People will talk, but those who matter will judge you by your own character, not your brother's. Give it time." That evening, Naomi told Owen about the incident. She expected him to be angry, but instead he just looked thoughtful. "I was thinking," he said, "that maybe we should have a gathering here at the ranch. Invite some of the neighbors, maybe some folks from town. Let people get to know you as yourself, not as Thomas Douglas's sister." "I do not know," Naomi said hesitantly. "What if people do not come? Or what if they come and are unkind? Then we will know who our real friends are," Owen said simply. "But I think you will be surprised. Most people out here understand that the West is a place for fresh starts. That is why many of us came here in the first place." The gathering was planned for the following Saturday. Naomi threw herself into preparations, cooking and cleaning and worrying in equal measure. Owen killed and roasted a pig, and Jack helped him set up tables in the yard. Mrs. Patterson offered to bring pies, and several other women from neighboring ranches sent word that they would bring dishes as well. When Saturday arrived, Naomi was certain no one would come. But by early afternoon, wagons began rolling up the road. The Pattersons came first, with their 3 children. Then the Martins, who owned the ranch to the east. The Chengs, a Chinese couple who had settled in the area after working on the railroad, brought their elderly father. More and more people arrived until the yard was full of neighbors and near strangers, all willing to give Naomi a chance. She moved through the crowd, talking with people, laughing at jokes, accepting compliments on her cooking. Several women asked her about teaching, and by the end of the afternoon, she had agreed to start lessons for the local children twice a week in the town schoolhouse. As the sun began to set, Owen found her standing a little apart from the crowd, watching the children play a game of tag. "You look happy," he observed. "I am," she said, surprised to realize it was true. "I think I really am." He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I am glad. You deserve to be happy, Naomi." She turned to face him, this good man who had seen the worst parts of her life and chosen to stand by her anyway. "So do you." "Then I guess we are both lucky," he said, and kissed her there in the golden evening light. with their new community around them and the future stretching out like the Nevada sky, vast and full of possibility. That night, after all the guests had gone and the mess had been cleaned up, Naomi and Owen lay together in his bed, the window open to let in the cool night air. She was curled against his side, his arm around her, and she felt safe in a way she had not felt in years. "Owen," she said softly. I think I am falling in love with you." She felt him go still, then he shifted so he could look down at her. His eyes were dark in the lamplight, intense with emotion. "You think?" he asked. "I know," she corrected herself. "I know I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have been since we started writing letters, but definitely since you stood beside me when Thomas came, since you told me I was not defined by his choices." Owen cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle. "I have been in love with you since the day you stepped off that stagecoach," he said. "You looked so determined and so scared, and I wanted to protect you from everything that might ever hurt you. I fell a little more every day after that." "Then why did you wait so long to tell me?" she asked. "I wanted you to be sure," he said. "I wanted you to know me, to trust me, to come to me freely, and not because you felt obligated as my wife." Tears pricked at her eyes. "How did I get so lucky?" "I ask myself the same question every day," he said, and kissed her. This kiss was different from the others they had shared. It was deeper, more passionate, full of promise and desire. Naomi felt heat unfold in her belly, spreading through her limbs. When Owen pulled back, his breathing was unsteady. "If you want to wait," he began. "I do not want to wait," she said firmly. "I want you, Owen. I want to be your wife in every way." What followed was tender and sweet, full of whispered endearments and gentle touches. Owen treated her like something precious, taking his time, making sure she was comfortable and willing every step of the way. When they finally came together, Naomi felt something click into place inside her, like a piece of herself she had not known was missing had suddenly been found. Afterward they lay tangled together, breathless and happy. Owen pressed kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you," he said. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too," she replied. "And you do not need to be scared. I am not going anywhere." The seasons turned. Summer gave way to fall, fall to winter. Naomi started teaching in town, working with a dozen children of various ages. She loved it, loved seeing their faces light up when they mastered a new skill, loved the way they trusted her to guide them. Owen was proud of her, telling anyone who would listen about his brilliant wife. They fell into comfortable rhythms. Naomi woke early to make breakfast, then rode into town for teaching on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Owen worked the ranch with his hands, breaking horses, mending fences, doing the 1,000 small tasks that kept a place running. In the evenings they cooked together, talking about their days. At night they made love or simply held each other, content in the closeness. Word reached them occasionally about Thomas. He was behaving himself in prison, apparently, working in the laundry, keeping his head down. Naomi wrote to him once a month, simple letters about her life. She did not know if he read them, but she felt compelled to maintain the connection, to let him know that she had not abandoned him even if she had chosen her own happiness over enabling his bad behavior. In early spring, Naomi realized her monthly courses were late. Then they were very late. She waited another week before saying anything to Owen, afraid to hope, but when she finally told him, his face lit up like the sun. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to have a baby, I think so," she said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Are you happy?" "Happy." He picked her up and spun her around, making her laugh. "I am overjoyed, thrilled, absolutely delighted." Mrs. Patterson, who had some experience with midwifery, confirmed the pregnancy. The baby would come in late October or early November, she estimated. Owen immediately became overprotective, not wanting Naomi to lift anything heavy or tire herself out. She found it equal parts endearing and exasperating. "I am pregnant, not ill," she reminded him. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "Not my wife," he said stubbornly. "My wife is carrying my child, and I am going to take care of her whether she likes it or not." She did like it, though. She liked the way he fussed over her, the way his hand would rest on her growing belly, the way he talked to the baby when he thought she was sleeping. Summer came again, hot and dry. Naomi's belly swelled. She had to stop riding into town to teach, so several of the families brought their children to the ranch instead, holding lessons on the shaded porch. Owen built a cradle in the evenings, his hands careful on the wood, his face soft with anticipation. In September, another letter arrived from the prison. But this time, it was not from the warden or the administration. It was from Thomas himself. "Naomi, I have been reading your letters." I did not respond because I was angry at first. Angry at you, at Owen, at the world. But anger is exhausting, and I have had a lot of time to think in here. You were right. About everything. I made bad choices, one after another, and I blamed everyone but myself. I blamed our parents for dying. I blamed you for not having enough money to give me. I blamed the world for being unfair. But the truth is, I chose this path. Nobody forced me to steal. Nobody forced me to rob that bank. I am not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why you did not help me run. If you had, I would have kept going down the same road until I ended up dead or killing someone. At least this way, I have a chance to become a better person. I am learning to read better. There is a prison chaplain who has been working with me. I am even thinking about taking some courses, maybe learning a trade. I have 13 more years in here, give or take. That is a long time. But maybe I can use it to become someone worth knowing. I am happy you found someone good, Naomi. You deserved that. You always deserved that. Your brother Thomas. Naomi read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Owen found her sitting at the kitchen table clutching the paper. "What is wrong?" he asked, alarmed. "Is it the baby?" "No," she managed. "It is Thomas. Read this." He read the letter, his expression serious. When he finished, he looked at her with understanding. "This is good," he said. "This is a start." "Do you think people can really change?" she asked. "Or do we just keep making the same mistakes over and over?" "I think people can change if they want to," Owen said. "Look at me. I was angry and lost, and I changed. Look at you. You were carrying so much guilt and fear, and you let it go. Change is possible, Naomi. It is just hard." She wrote back to Thomas that evening. A long letter telling him how proud she was of him for taking responsibility, how much she hoped he would continue on this better path, how she would support him in any way she could from a distance. She told him about the baby, about her teaching, about the life she had built. She told him that she forgave him and hoped he would forgive himself. On a cold November morning, Naomi went into labor. Mrs. Patterson came to the ranch along with another woman who had delivered several babies. Owen paced in the main room, listening to Naomi's cries with a face pale with worry. "First babies take a while," Mrs. Patterson told him. "Go outside and do some work. You are just getting in the way here." But Owen refused to leave. He went to Naomi's side, holding her hand, letting her squeeze it until his fingers went numb. He wiped the sweat from her forehead and told her she was strong. She was doing wonderfully. He loved her more than life. After 12 hours of labor, their son was born just as the sun was setting. He was red-faced and squalling, with a thick shock of dark hair. Mrs. Patterson placed him on Naomi's chest, and she looked down at him with wonder. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Hello, sweetheart." Owen was crying, tears running unashamedly down his face. "He is perfect," he said. "You are perfect. I love you both so much." They named him Samuel after Owen's grandfather, with the middle name James after Naomi's father. Samuel Owen Sullivan, their son, their future. The first months were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Samuel was a good baby, but he still needed to be fed every few hours, day and night. Naomi was constantly tired, but she had never been happier. Owen helped as much as he could, walking Samuel around the house when he was fussy, changing his diapers, singing to him in a surprisingly good baritone. When Samuel was 3 months old, Naomi received another letter from Thomas. He had been made a trustee at the prison, given small responsibilities as a reward for good behavior. He thanked her for her last letter and asked if she would send a photograph of Samuel if she had one. The next time they went to town, they sat for a portrait at the photographer's studio, the three of them together. Naomi sent a copy to Thomas with a note saying that Samuel's uncle was trying to be a better man, and that was all anyone could ask. The years flowed past like a river. Samuel grew from a baby to a toddler to a boy, quick and bright and full of questions. Naomi went back to teaching part-time when he was old enough to spend mornings with Mrs. Patterson. The ranch prospered under Owen's careful management. They added more land, more horses, and hired 2 more hands to help with the work. When Samuel was 4, Naomi discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the baby came easier, a daughter with Naomi's light brown hair and Owen's dark eyes. They named her Clara Me Sullivan, and Samuel was immediately smitten with his baby sister, wanting to hold her all the time. Owen was gentler than ever with this second child, marveling that he had helped create such beauty twice. "I must have done something right in a past life," he told Naomi, "to deserve all this." "We both did," she replied, kissing him, "or we are just lucky." "I will take luck," he said, grinning. Thomas's letters continued, arriving every few months. He had completed a carpentry program in the prison and was making furniture for the prison offices. He sent a small wooden horse he had carved for Samuel's 5th birthday, a gesture that made Naomi cry. The boy loved the toy, carrying it everywhere. "Your uncle made that," Naomi told him. "He is learning to do good things with his hands. Can I meet him someday?" Samuel asked. Naomi exchanged a look with Owen. "Maybe," she said carefully. "When you are older and when he gets out of prison, if he has truly changed, we will see." When Samuel was 7 and Clara was 3, Naomi was pregnant again. This time it was twins, 2 boys who arrived early and tiny but healthy. They named them Daniel and Jacob, and suddenly the house felt both crowded and complete. Owen hired a woman from town to help Naomi with the children and the house, over her initial protests. But she had to admit it was nice to have help, especially with 4 small children to manage. She cut back on teaching to focus on her family, though she continued tutoring a few older students who came to the ranch. On Samuel's 10th birthday, they received word that Thomas was being released early for good behavior. He had served 10 years of his 15-year sentence and was being paroled. He wanted to know if he could come to see Naomi to meet her family. Naomi's first instinct was fear, but Owen, as always, was calm and practical. "He has served his time," Owen said. "He deserves a chance to prove he has changed, but we will be careful. We will meet him in town first in public before we invite him here." So it was arranged. On a bright spring morning, Naomi and Owen left the children with Mrs. Patterson and rode into town to meet Thomas at the small hotel where he was staying. The man who greeted them was almost unrecognizable. Thomas was 32 now, his face lined with experience, but somehow softer than it had been. He was clean-shaven, his hair neatly trimmed, his clothes simple but respectable. He held his hat in his hands and looked at Naomi with an expression that mixed hope and fear. "Naomi," he said quietly, "thank you for seeing me." "Thomas." She did not move to embrace him, not yet. "You look well." "I am trying to be well," he said. "I am trying to be better." They sat in the hotel's small dining room and talked. Thomas told them about his time in prison, about the carpentry work he had learned, about the chaplain who had helped him find faith. He had saved the small wages he had earned, enough to live on for a few months while he looked for work. "I was hoping," he said hesitantly, "that maybe I could stay in the area. I do not want to impose on you, Naomi. I just want to be near family if you will allow it, and I want to make amends. I want to prove that I have changed." Owen had been quiet through most of the conversation, watching Thomas carefully. Now he spoke. "Naomi and I need to discuss this," he said. "But I will tell you now, if you are truly committed to being a better man, I will help you. There is a carpenter in town who might need an apprentice. I can put in a word for you, but you must understand, if you do anything to hurt my wife or endanger our children, I will not be forgiving." "I understand," Thomas said. "I would expect nothing less. And I swear to you I am not that person anymore. I do not want to be that person ever again." They left him with a promise to send word in a few days. On the ride home, Naomi was quiet, thinking. "What do you think?" Owen asked. "I think he seems different," she said slowly. "But I am afraid to believe it. I have been disappointed before." "So we will be cautious," Owen said. "We will give him a chance, but we will not be foolish about it. He can earn our trust over time if he is serious about changing." True to his word, Owen spoke to the carpenter in town, a German immigrant named Mr. Schneider, who agreed to take Thomas on as an apprentice. Thomas found a small room above the livery stable and began working, learning the finer points of carpentry while making furniture to sell. For the first few months, Naomi and Owen kept their distance, watching to see if Thomas would stay on this better path. But as time went on, it became clear that something fundamental had changed in him. He went to church every Sunday. He paid his debts. He did good work and did not complain. He did not drink or gamble or keep bad company. After 6 months, Naomi finally invited him to the ranch for Sunday dinner. Samuel, now 10, was curious about this uncle he had heard about but never met. Clara, at 6, was shy. The twins, at 3, were indifferent. Thomas brought gifts he had made: a wooden puzzle for Samuel, a doll cradle for Clara, toy horses for the twins. He was awkward with the children at first, not quite knowing how to talk to them, but his obvious effort was touching. "Thank you for this," he said to Naomi as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching Owen and the children play in the yard. "For giving me a chance. I know I do not deserve it." "You are my brother," Naomi said simply. "I never stopped loving you, Thomas. I just could not enable you anymore." "There is a difference." "I understand that now," he said. "I wish I had understood it sooner. I wasted so many years." "You are only 32, she said. "You still have time to build a good life, to become someone you are proud of." "I am trying," he said. "Every day I am trying." Over the next few years, Thomas became a regular presence in their lives. He came to Sunday dinners, helped Owen with projects around the ranch, taught Samuel carpentry skills. He opened his own shop in town, building a reputation for quality work and fair prices. He courted and married a widow named Ruth, a kind woman with 2 children of her own. They built a house on the edge of town, and Thomas became a stepfather, determined to do better by Ruth's children than he had done by his own life. Watching her brother build this new life filled Naomi with a joy she had not expected. He had proven that people could change, that redemption was possible with effort and commitment. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen took Naomi into town for a dinner at the hotel, just the two of them. It was rare for them to have time alone with 4 children at home, and they savored the quiet. "Have I told you lately that I love you?" Owen asked, holding her hand across the table. "Not in at least 3 hours," Naomi replied, smiling. "I was starting to wonder." "I love you," he said, his voice serious now. "I love the life we have built together. I love our children. I love waking up next to you every morning. I love growing old with you." "We are not old," she protested. "I am 32 and you are 35. "Old enough to know how lucky I am," he said. "Do you remember what I told you that first day when your brother came to the ranch? That you were not defined by his choices?" "I remember," she said softly. "I meant it then, and I mean it now," he said. "You are defined by your kindness, your strength, your love. By the way you have built a life that matters, a family that thrives. By the way you have forgiven without forgetting, loved without enabling. You are one of the strongest people I have ever known, Naomi Sullivan, and I am honored to be your husband." Tears filled her eyes. "You saved me," she said. "When I came here, I was so lost, so tired of carrying the weight of guilt and responsibility for things I could not control. You showed me how to let go, how to live for myself and not just in reaction to others. You gave me a home, a family, a future. You gave me love." "We saved each other," Owen corrected gently. "I was lonely before you came. I had built a good ranch, but I was living half a life. You made it whole. You made me whole." They kissed across the table, heedless of the other diners, lost in their own perfect moment. The years continued to pass. Samuel grew into a fine young man, taking over more and more of the ranch work as Owen's back began to ache from decades of hard labor. Clara married a young teacher from Denver and moved to that city, though she visited often. The twins, Daniel and Jacob, were inseparable, working the ranch together with their father and older brother. Naomi's hair began to show silver threads, and Owen's was more gray than dark. They celebrated their 20th anniversary, then their 25th. They became grandparents when Samuel married and had children of his own. Clara sent word that she was expecting as well. Thomas remained a part of their lives, a constant reminder that people could change, that the past did not have to define the future. He and Ruth had a good marriage, and he was a devoted stepfather. He never returned to crime, never wavered from the better path he had chosen. On their 30th anniversary, Owen and Naomi sat on the porch as the sun set over the mountains, watching their grandchildren play in the yard that had seen so much life, so much love. "You ever regret it?" Owen asked. "Coming here, marrying a stranger?" "Not for a single moment," Naomi said. "You are the best decision I ever made." "Even when things were hard," he pressed. "When Thomas came, when people gossiped, especially then," she said firmly. "Those hard times showed me what kind of man you are, Owen Sullivan. They showed me that I had chosen well. That we had chosen each other well." He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, content. "I love you," he said, as he had said countless times over the decades. "I love you too," she replied, as she always did. And as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, they sat together in the home they had built, surrounded by the family they had created, living proof that love could overcome the past, that people could change, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was believe in second chances both for others and for yourself. Years rolled into decades. Owen and Naomi watched their children grow and have families of their own. The ranch expanded, prospered, became a legacy they would pass down through generations. They grew old together, their hands becoming wrinkled but still clasping each other's with the same tenderness as always. Samuel took over running the ranch when Owen was 60, allowing his father to finally rest after a lifetime of hard work. Owen spent his days on the porch, whittling toys for his grandchildren, dispensing wisdom to anyone who asked for it. Naomi continued teaching until she was 55, finally retiring to focus on her growing family. Thomas lived a long and honest life, dying peacefully at age 67 with Ruth by his side. At his funeral, dozens of people came to pay their respects, speaking of his kindness, his skill as a carpenter, his generosity to those in need. Naomi cried at his graveside, not just for the brother she had lost, but for the man he had become. "He made it," she said to Owen, her voice thick with tears. "He really changed." "Because you believed he could," Owen replied. "And because you loved him enough to let him find his own way, instead of trying to save him from himself." When Naomi was 68 and Owen was 71, he fell ill with pneumonia during a harsh winter. For a week, he burned with fever and Naomi barely left his side, bathing his forehead with cool cloths, holding his hand, whispering that he had to stay with her just a little longer. On the 8th day, the fever broke. Owen opened his eyes and smiled at her, weak but present. "I am not ready to leave you yet," he said hoarsely. "Good," she replied, crying with relief, "because I am not ready to let you go." He recovered slowly, but he did recover. By spring, he was back on the porch, thinner but alive, grateful for every moment. "I have been thinking," he said to Naomi one evening as they watched the sunset together, as they had done thousands of times before, "about the day you arrived, how scared you looked stepping off that stage." "I was terrified," she admitted. "I thought you would be disappointed when you saw me. I thought I had made a terrible mistake. I thought I was dreaming," he said. "I thought there was no way someone so beautiful, so kind, could really want to marry me." "We were both fools," she said fondly. "The best kind of fools," he agreed. "The kind who took a chance on love and won." They lived into their 80s, a remarkable age for their time and place. Their children threw them a party for their 50th wedding anniversary, with grandchildren and great-grandchildren filling the ranch house to bursting. There were speeches and tears and laughter, stories told and retold about the patriarch and matriarch of this sprawling family. That night, exhausted but happy, Naomi and Owen lay in bed together as they had for 5 decades. 50 years, Naomi marveled. Half a century with you. "Not long enough," Owen said. 1,000 years would not be enough." "You always did know the right thing to say," she said, her voice tender. "I learned from the best," he replied, kissing her forehead. They fell asleep in each other's arms, and if they dreamed of a dusty day in 1877 when a frightened young woman stepped off a stagecoach and found, against all odds, exactly what she had been searching for: a home, a partner, and a love that would last a lifetime. Owen passed first, dying peacefully in his sleep at age 84. Naomi woke to find him gone, his face relaxed and calm, finally at rest after a long and good life. She held his hand for a long time, saying her goodbyes, thanking him for every moment they had shared. At his funeral, she stood strong and dry-eyed, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She told them stories about their grandfather, about his kindness and strength, about the day he had told her she was not defined by her brother's choices. "He taught me how to forgive," she said, "how to love without condition, how to build a life that mattered. He was the best man I ever knew, and I am grateful for every single day we had together." She lived 2 more years without him, years filled with family and memories. She told stories to her great-grandchildren about the old days, about traveling to Nevada to marry a stranger, about building a ranch and a life from nothing. She watched the family that she and Owen had created continue to grow and thrive. On a spring morning, the same season she had first arrived in Nevada 68 years earlier, Naomi passed away quietly in her sleep. She was 86 years old. She died in the house Owen had built, surrounded by photographs of the life they had shared, wearing the simple gold band he had placed on her finger on their wedding day. Her children buried her next to Owen, their graves side by side overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, Naomi Elizabeth Sullivan, 1851–1937, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, not defined by others, but by love and beside it. Owen Matthew Sullivan, 1848–1932, beloved husband, father, grandfather. He chose love every day years later. When the great-grandchildren would ask about Owen and Naomi, the family would tell them the story. About the mail-order bride who came west carrying secrets and fear. About the cowboy who showed her that she was not defined by her brother's choices. About how they built a love that lasted through decades and difficulties. They would tell about Thomas, too, and his redemption, because that was part of the story, the part about second chances and change, and the courage it takes to become someone better. The ranch still stood, passed down through Samuel's line, worked by the fourth and fifth generations of Sullivans. In the main house, framed and hanging on the wall, was a letter. It was yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. Owen had written it to Naomi during their brief courtship by mail before she had come to Nevada. One line was underlined in red by some descendant who had found it particularly meaningful. I believe that the West is a place where people can become who they are meant to be, free from the shadows of their past. I hope you will come here and discover that for yourself. And she had. Naomi Douglas had come west carrying the weight of her brother's sins and found Owen Sullivan, a man who saw her for who she truly was, not who her family made her. Together, they had built a life of love and forgiveness, of second chances and chosen joy. They had proven that the past did not have to dictate the future, that people could change, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you could do was believe in love in others' capacity for it and your own worthiness of it. Their story became family legend, told and retold, adapted and embellished, but always returning to the same core truth. Love, real love, sees past the surface to the person underneath. It does not judge by association but by action. It believes in the possibility of redemption while maintaining healthy boundaries. It is both strong and gentle, both forgiving and discerning. The Sullivan Ranch continued to thrive into the 20th century and beyond, but it was more than just a successful business. It was a testament to two people who had taken a chance on each other, who had chosen love over fear, forgiveness over resentment, hope over despair. On quiet evenings, when the wind blew down from the mountains and the sun painted the sky in shades of gold, visitors to the ranch sometimes reported feeling a presence on the old porch, nothing frightening, just a sense of peace and contentment, as though two souls who had loved deeply were still there, still holding hands, still watching the sunset together. The family knew better than to dismiss such stories. After all, if love like Owen and Naomi's could transcend hardship and time, why could it not transcend death as well? They had promised each other forever, and the Sullivan family believed they had gotten it. In the end, theirs was a simple story. A woman who needed to know she was more than her family's mistakes, and a man who showed her it was true. From that foundation, they had built an empire of love, not of wealth or power, but of family and faith, of kindness passed down through generations, of the enduring truth that who we choose to be matters more than who we were born to be. The Wild West was known for many things: outlaws and lawmen, gold rushes and land grabs, violence and opportunity. But it was also, sometimes, a place where broken people could be made whole, where mail-order brides could find true love, where cowboys could be poets of compassion, and where even a criminal's sister could discover that she was not defined by his choices, but by her own, and that her best choice had been stepping off that stagecoach into Owen Sullivan's waiting arms. Their legacy lived on in every Sullivan child who learned that kindness was strength, in every grandchild who understood that forgiveness was freedom, in every great-grandchild who knew that love was a choice you made every single day. Owen and Naomi Sullivan had given their descendants more than land or wealth. They had given them a blueprint for how to love well, how to live honorably, and how to believe in the possibility of change. And so the story ended not with tragedy or loss, but with triumph, the triumph of two people who had found each other against the odds and built something that would last long after they were gone. In a world that often seemed cruel and chaotic, they had created a pocket of peace and love. In a time when judgment came quick and mercy came slow, they had chosen understanding and compassion. Naomi Douglas Sullivan and Owen Matthew Sullivan had lived, loved, and left behind a legacy that proved that sometimes the best stories are not about heroes slaying dragons or conquering kingdoms, but about ordinary people making extraordinary choices to love, to forgive, to believe in second chances, and to build a life that honored not the worst of what we inherit, but the best of what we can become.